أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum. I'm Farah Michelle Kimbal. It's a pleasure to be here today to give a testimony regarding Sheikh Abdullahi J. The first question I was asked was, when and how did you meet Sheikh Abdullahi J? So it was over 20 years ago in 1999, shortly after I visited Iraq with the International Peace Project. And I was invited to meet him at a friend's house in Santa Barbara, California. Sheikh J was with about 20 followers who had come from all over the world to be with him on this tour in the United States. There was an instant rapport, and I offered for them to come to our house for a visit, as we often invited Muslim and Sufi teachers to give informal talks at our house. So he then asked me if all his disciples could stay overnight at our house. So I said yes, and that night we hosted him and his group. So I remember how excited my 5-year-old daughter, Sage, was as we scampered to get everything ready to host so many overnight guests. So that began a time of getting to know him and the disciples. And when he started to visit California, and he came to stay with us, we would always invite people to come and meet and listen to him, and for meditation and dhikr Allah, remembrance of God. So he also encouraged our family around that time to make the pilgrimage to Touba. So we went to Senegal in 1999 as Sheikh J and his family's guests for a month, and we toured places Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba had been to around Senegal. And there were some other American disciples there too on this trip. So from then on, Sheikh J made many more visits to the United States, to various places on the East and West Coast, and to our place in Santa Barbara, California, several times a year. And we organized events for him. We organized talks at the University of California at Santa Barbara, an African story hour at an elementary school. We even had a school exchange program with Saint Louis, Senegal, and a school in Santa Barbara. And we organized a very successful healing retreat in Montecito. We organized Sufi chanting at the Unitarian Church with him leading, television interviews and newspaper articles we arranged. So there was a lot of activity around him at our place, and it was almost like a full-time job for me, actually, as part of the International Peace Project work I was doing. So since he brought so many Sufi chants to us at our house for our gatherings, we eventually decided to get a large group of professional musicians together to produce a CD of the chants he taught us. So we had many talented musicians with instruments from all over the world, including drums from Senegal. And over a few months' time, we came out with a CD that was distributed in the United States. He's featured on the CD giving prayers and chanting. So at the same time, Sheikh J showed an interest in my peace activities, as I had just returned from Iraq, and also, I was director of the International Peace Project, and he was involved in global peace initiatives, and that he spoke at the United Nations and the World Conference of Religions and other places. So at that time, he was concerned about the plight of humanity in many parts of the world, but also the Palestinian-Israeli situation. So he was very interested in helping to bring peace to the region, and he gave specific instructions about religious leaders of different faiths coming together to pray about the Palestinian plight. And he suggested doing this in the area of Palestine. So he believed that would bring an opening to remedy the situation. And people ask, how is it that I came to want to do so much to spread this message? Well, I had been a peace activist and was very active outwardly. But as it says in the Quran, indeed, God will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So the outer world is not going to change until we do the work. So I knew change had to come from the inside. So the next question was, what drew you to him? Sheikh J had a presence, and as Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, rahmatullah, said, you have to sit with the people of Sufism because they are like a fountain of knowledge, and they keep the remembrance of God in the hearts. So they are the ascetics, and they have the most spiritual power. So to me, it felt like that, being with Sheikh J and sitting around him with all the many people who came to to be with him. So I think that is also why he drew people from all walks of life and different religions, and they could feel that presence. So Sheikh J spoke directly from the Quran and from the teachings of Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. He had a luminosity of spirit. Anyway, his focus was always on God, the Prophet and Prophets, peace be upon them, and Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. And Sheikh J was always referring to himself as a disciple of Khadim al-Rasul, servant to the Prophet, Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba. So Sheikh J constantly recited the Quran, the Qaçidas, and even in the car while we were traveling, everyone would be chanting La ilaha illallah or something similar. And he always had healing prayers for people if they had a problem, illness, or difficulty. And he knew some healing methods that deal with likenesses, such as giving away something in this world as a connection to the spiritual world to draw a person what they needed. So his presence was very uplifting. Many people experienced joy. But on the other hand, of course, people needed to maintain this high level of vibration by following religious and spiritual methods. And not everyone did, but people kept coming back. So he seemed to be of a high state and possessed inner knowledge, as well as outer knowledge. And he prided himself on reaching the spiritual state of Abdullah, slave of God. Another question I was asked was, what do you remember about your experience with him? Well, of course, I remember many things, such as the spiritual lessons he taught, but also how close he was to our family, since he spent so much time with us when he was in the United States. On one occasion in Santa Barbara, he had to go to the hospital for a blood condition. He was a patient in the same hospital I was in, and at the same time, I was there to give birth to my twin sons. And he walked down the corridors of the hospital with a rolling IV drip, decked out in beautiful clothes, and with about a dozen followers behind him chanting La ilaha illallah, on his way to see and bless the twins in the nursery after they were born. So we were discharged from the hospital at the exact same time, date and time, quite a remarkable synchronicity. And I think that I was destined to meet Sheikh J and pass on the information he shared with me. So I was asked, how has his teaching influenced your life? Well, obviously greatly, and there are many examples, even in raising my children. And there are many anecdotes to learn from of experiences with him. But maybe the biggest one is that the biggest influence of him in my life was that after he suddenly passed in 2002, I spent more than a decade writing a book on Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba called Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, A Peacemaker for Our Time. And that was partly from the information he passed on to me, but definitely inspired by what he taught, having embodied those very teachings.